Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final day of facilitating SRAE with Excellence. My name is Julie Marchbanks from Public Strategies, and I will be the host for today. Before we get started, I want to review a couple of housekeeping items with you and explain how you can participate in today's Zoom session. We invite you to use the chat box to ask a question, make a comment, or to address any technical issues. Please be sure to select the drop-down Everyone so that the moderator can read your question out loud. If you do not see the chat box located in the panels on your screen, please select the chat icon at the bottom of your Zoom window. The controls will auto-hide, so you may have to mouse over the bottom of your screen to display your meeting control toolbar. The polling feature will be used during today's session. You will be prompted to answer the poll. If you do not see the poll, you will need to enable pop-ups in your application settings or change your Zoom video layout. Video layout options are located in the top right corner of your screen. This presentation will be recorded. All recordings, presentations, and handouts will be available on the Exchange about 1 week after the topical training has concluded. At this time, I would like to welcome our moderator, Mary Ann Mozak, President and CEO of Ascend.
Well, hello, everyone. It's great to be with you, day 3 of this topical training. And we are going to be discussing strategies for expanding SRA programming at the local level. And the reason we chose this topic is because we know that, you know, there's sometimes a desire to just reach every student, you know, in your school district or your community with this message. And we need to be creative sometimes and have innovative strategies to do that. And I have asked a panel of grantee, and I'm going to call them experts because they've been at this for a long time and they have enjoyed a lot of success in what they do, commendable success. So let's go to the next slide, Julie, and I'm going to just briefly talk about the objectives for today. All right, so what we'd like to accomplish today is to examine proven and innovative ways to increase SRAE programming at the local level and to recognize unique opportunities for implementing SRAE in diverse community settings. Next slide, please. And it is my, actually my honor to present this distinguished panel. First of all, Thelma Moten is the founder and executive director of Choosing to Excel in Conway, Arkansas, and she directs a multifaceted program that provides quality programming and support to positive youth development for all youth. So welcome, Thelma. Next, we have Peggy Pecchio, and she is the executive director for OK Inc. This is a community-based nonprofit in Northeast Ohio, one of the longest relationship education programs in the country. Welcome to Peggy. And finally, we have Cliff Baskerville, who is one of the vice presidents at Choosing the Best Publishing, where he works with thousands of teachers and teens throughout the country. So we also want to direct you to the registration site where you're going to be able to have a fuller bio on each of the panelists today. So before we begin, the panel has asked that they would like to know where the individuals who are participating today, where you implement SRAE education. So if you can see the poll up in front of you, please just take a moment to answer the poll.
Quite a few people still answering the poll. We'll give you about another 20 seconds. Polling results have been posted.
All right, as you can see, most of you, a great majority, 90%, are meeting students in a school setting. And then we have kind of a tie between the after school and community serving agencies. Some of you are involved in summer programs and alternative schools and juvenile detention centers. So it's a good mix of where people are meeting students. And I think all of these venues are going to be discussed in our panel today. So thank you for taking that poll. All right, with the next slide, we'll be giving our question, starting our question. Our topic, this is going to be the first question we're going to ask our panelists. Please share your most successful strategies for expanding your SRAE programs into schools, youth serving agencies, and other community venues. And let's start with the ever enthusiastic Cliff Baskerville from Choosing the Best.
But again, my name is Cliff Baskerville. I'm really excited about being here and being part of this session. My understanding, the first 2 days have been awesome and outstanding, and hopefully we can have another great day. And so far, it's been good. But I love this question because it's talking about strategies, and 90% of the polling suggested that most of you guys are working in schools, and we do a lot, obviously, in schools as well. But the first thing that we try and do whenever we're trying to implement in a school, a youth serving agency, any other community venue, the first thing that we do is that we have to find a champion. And a champion to us is this is a person or a group that is passionate about the message that we're giving, the SRAE message, and the program or your program that you guys are representing. They also have to be, and this is something that's very important, a lot of people find people that are passionate about your program, but they have no influence or they're not the decision maker. So the champion that we're referring to has to have either influencing over the decision, or they have to be the decision maker themselves. Now, who can these people actually be? And we always talk about this because, again, I've seen a lot of programs and agencies and districts almost get places, but they don't get to where they're trying to get to because they haven't developed the right people. But who are these people, right? They can be superintendents of school. I know that we're at the top and they're have a lot of layers before we get there. But again, the superintendent of schools is one, the curriculum directors is another, lead teachers, you got educators, you got students, and even parents. For us, they all have influence, and we can all create advocates for your program in order to get them in. And now we talk about developing these people into champions. And how do we do that? The first thing that we have to do is we also have to speak their language. And that's something that's really important too, because now I found out who my champion could be. I found out the person who has influence, but now I'm not speaking the right language. So because of that, now the door gets shut in my face, or I have to try to find another way, and it may not work that well. But when I'm dealing with superintendents and curriculum directors, our experiences are that they really want three things. And if you can deliver these three things, is something that's going to be very helpful for you. But the first one is their state requirements or their standard course of study. Does your program help check that box? Right? Because everybody has it listed on their websites or the state websites. And if I can go in there and say, no, we fit your state requirements, or we fulfill the standard course of study that's in your program or in your school, that goes a checkbox, right? They also want a consistent message throughout the district. Sometimes you have one teacher saying one thing, you have another teacher saying another thing, and that creates a headache for that superintendent or that curriculum director or whoever's in charge. So to avoid that, they want a consistent message throughout the district. And again, it has to fit their standard course of study. And then they also want to make sure, and this is something that you will present to them, they want to make sure that it's not too taxing on the teachers. They know that their teachers have a lot to do, right? So whatever you're presenting, whatever you're bringing to that district, if it's too much time away from that teacher, or the teacher has to lesson plan, or the teacher has to create, then it becomes really difficult for them to want to partner with or allow you to come into that school. Lead teachers and educators are a little bit different. okay? They're not the superintendent, they're not the curriculum director. They have a different agenda. And what we've kind of found out working with a lot of them is that our lead teachers and educators, they want something that's easy, right? It's easy to use. They want to be able to get in there and say, you know what, let me pick it up, let me go. I'm okay, I'm a great teacher already, and most of them are, okay? I just want something that's going to make my job even easier. You're also going to find that the teachers want that message, that powerful message, that SRAE message, that let's delay sexual activity message, and what are the positives and what are the benefits, right? They want that message. They like that message because they like to see the light bulbs on the heads of their students, right? They're in the students, they're working with the students every day in the class. So when I can see that it's impacting my student, oh man, that's the best and the greatest thing in the world. So the teacher wants to see what that impact can be, and you have to be able to present that powerful message to them. And then lastly, you're going to find that they also want something that's engaging to the students. The superintendent and the curriculum director, they're not always, well, I don't want to say that generic, I don't want to say that in general, right? But the teachers definitely have the pulse of what's happening with those students every single day. So the technology, the cultural relevancy, the social relevance, they kind of know what that is. So when we're talking to teachers and we're trying to create champions with our teachers, they have to be able to say, you know what, that fits as it relates to social and cultural relevance, that fits because it's a powerful message, and yes, that does make my job easy. Whether it's me teaching in a classroom or that's somebody coming in from the outside and being able to deliver the message. Now the students is a little bit different too, and I'll quickly go through. I know I only have 8 minutes, but I like talking sometime, right? So you're gonna find that students is a little bit different. They're talking about, they want a truthful message. They want a message that's life-changing to them. They want to feel inspired. They want to feel motivated. They want to feel like it's not just them. They want to know that the real majority of teens are not having sex, so I can pay now and play later, and that's a benefit for me. Like, they want to know what's in it for them, right? So when I can give them that message, that's an awesome thing, and they will be strong advocates, especially when they're writing letters and doing all the different things that they're going to do, showing the benefits of the program. And they also want a fun and engaging program too.
It is not cold out here.
Okay. They also want a fun and engaging program too. The thing about sometimes we as teachers, sometimes we get caught up in a situation where we're the only ones in town. They need to be appreciative of what we're doing. And, you know, if we weren't here, no one else would be here. So they should just like what we give them. But when we're dealing with students, no, okay. It needs to be fun. It needs to be engaging. It needs to be creative. It needs to be a true message. And they need to feel inspired and motivated and know that you really, really care about the messages that you're giving and they're receiving. And then lastly, parents, real quick. For us, now the message is different again. But again, all of these people can become champions and all of them become advocates for your program, which can be really, really strong. But for parents, they want an informative message because they don't have all the information necessarily in this topic. They know what they want to say, but they want to know, they need the confidence of how to say it, right? And they can feel that your program can help them with that. That is an awesome deal. So they want an informative message. They want a comforting message because they're a little nervous about this topic, right? So they want a comforting message. And then lastly, they want a partnering message. To come alongside, not to take the place of, but to come alongside and be a partner as it relates to delivering this message to our teens. So again, to us, when we're working with implementation, and whether it be schools and community groups or whatever it may be, our goal is to create as many champions as we can, and then we can work creatively from there. But we also have to be able to identify what are the hot buttons for each and every individual champion that we're trying to create, so that way they can help us break through the bureaucracy or the red tape of whatever it may be to get our program implemented or your program implemented into the schools. If I have like 2 more seconds, just real quick.
You're doing fine on time.
Oh, I'm doing fine on time? Okay. All right, so the next question I typically get is, okay, well, it's good. You told me all this good stuff. I do want to do it. I'm going to find my champion. I'm going to find my advocates. And how do I reach these people? Well, with superintendents, you got to call them. Okay. You got to call them or you got to email them. And you're going to find that that is it takes a lot. And there's a trick to doing it effectively. But that's one way to get in. Direct calling, direct emailing, regional and state meetings, workshops, appointments. There's so many different ways to do it. But don't be scared to go through the front door, right? Because again, we have everything, or you have everything that they're looking for, and you're a solution to some of the things they have to do anyway, right? So again, that's one way. When you're talking about teachers and educators, now we're talking about conferences and community events, and then relationships. The relationships that you can form throughout the community is critical. And when teachers are bought in and you have a good relationship with the teachers that are working in that district, they'll stand on the front line and help you get your program into that school or to that district. Students, events, I always talk about other programs. The reason I say that, because whatever program I'm teaching in, those are students. They're writing letters basically after every ending of every program, so that way I can use those letters to help me as I go forward, as they're validating or affirming the impact of your program. And that's something that they're going to want to see. And then lastly, when we're talking about parents, there's so many. There's curriculum nights, there's PTA meetings, there's town hall meetings, there's university days, there's nonprofits and community partners, there's churches, basically any program that's dealing with students. I remember I was charged with working with 2,500 parents in one particular year, and this goes back some time. And what I did is I pretty much called any program that was dealing with any student and said, what are you doing for your parents? And created a whole list of advocates, because once we presented to the parents, they were advocating for our program all over that district and all over that community. So don't be scared to advocate, to promote, to work with parents, students, teacher educators, superintendents, because they're going to be necessary to help you promote your program and to get your program in those schools. Make sense?
Yes, there's a collective yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cliff. That was great. And for all of you who have joined us, if you could just use your chat box, and while we're going to tee up our next panelist, I'd like you to put into the chat box, who is the champion that most often helps you to promote the program in your area. So you can just go ahead and fill that in. And next, we're going to ask Peggy Pecchio. If you can unmute yourself, Peggy, and join us and tell us your most successful strategy for expanding the program in your area at the local level.
Well, I want to follow up on what Cliff is saying, because you do need to look for your champions. And we at OK Inc. have this long-standing policy of going in by invitation only. So we're looking for that invitation. And because once you have an invitation into a school or a youth serving organization, you get to meet with those decision makers. And then you get to share what you're doing in the community. And that's really when you begin to start building this relationship that you're going to covet. And I think that's what Cliff was saying. It's about finding your champions, building relationships, and really becoming integral in your communities. And so I would say for us as an organization, our #1 champion has always been parents. We've always had them be our #1 advocate. But as we grew, now we've been in this business for around 30 years. As we've grown, our #2 champion is the classroom teachers that we work with, or the youth organizations that we work with. And so if they go from one school to another, or from middle school to high school, guess what? They take us with them, because we are, we're their partners we're helping them get where they want to be with their young people. So, you know, invitation only. You want to be invited into that school system or to that youth organization, because that's how you get to meet with those high-ranking decision makers. If a parent is advocating for you, you know, the school system is more apt to listen to what you have to offer. So I would say, yeah, Cliff, just what you're saying, look for the champions. And for us, it's always been parents. And I would say through the years, it's really been school personnel. And if you're new in this, if you're new in an area, you know, one of the ways to really get to know people, and this is what Cliff was also saying, is you need to have some community involvement. You can't just call up. I mean, I give you a lot of kudos, Cliff, calling up these superintendents. But one of the ways that we go about it is we become integral members in the community. So wherever something's going on, we're there. If they're passing out book bags at the beginning of the school, we're offering them resources. If there's a toy drive or a coat drive, we're there. If and another thing, another way that we become integral is we offer resources to the community. So, for example, we might offer a speaker. You know, we might invite all the nonprofits who are youth-serving nonprofits in a community, and we would say, okay, we're having a luncheon, and we're inviting this speaker on illicit drug use, or we're inviting this speaker on human trafficking. We become a resource for them. We get to know them. They get to know us. We go to their events. So, for example, if another nonprofit that we are partnering with is having a fundraiser, guess what? We're there. We're there offering to help. What can we do for you? Because we're hoping to have that reciprocated to us. So community involvement is really a must. You absolutely have to be involved in your community. You can't just think you're going to call up that, Cliff, I know you're good at it, but I think you really need to get to know your community, get to know who's involved in the school systems. And of course, I want to also say your public officials, they need to know who you are. They need to know that, hey, if they're looking for somebody, an expert in a field, who are they going to call? They're going to call you. And that's what you really want to develop in the communities that you want to serve. You want to become the experts in the field. You want to have resources, and you want to build relationships. And I believe that that's what the thing you were really hitting on, Cliff, is building relationships in your community. And I just want to say one last thing. So we go by invitation only. We're heavily involved in the communities we serve. And the last thing, we always have a list of our unserved schools or the community organizations that we want to reach. We always have a list. We know who we're serving and who we're not serving. And so what we would do then is once a year, or it depends, it could be more than once a year, but we never let a year go by that we do not reach out to those unserved schools. Our organization develops a middle school and a high school magazine. You better believe that's in the packet. We offer them some free resources, and we do not say, hey, do you want our programming? What we say is, look, we have some middle school magazines. We'd like to offer them free to your youth. No strings attached. We're just going to offer you this resource. We send them, and we will have schools call up and say, hey, you know, we want 100 of your magazines. We send the magazines. That's where we begin to develop our relationship. Then they begin to inquire, well, what else do you have? What else can you provide for us? Then we say to them something like, okay, we have 40 short films on YouTube on a variety of risk factors. Possibly you can use those in your programming at school. And we begin to find our champions, develop our relationships, and then the invitation starts to roll in. So I think, you know, just getting back to what Cliff was saying, look for your champions. How do you look for your champions? You become very involved in the community, and you also offer them something with no strings attached. ultimately you do want to provide all your programming for them, but you want to develop that relationship along the way. And I can't tell you the number of times we get a call and someone will say, hey, I have a copy of your magazine, tell me about yourself. And there we go, there's the relationship, there's the invitation. And I just want to say one last thing in closing. With everything that's going on with COVID, we had no idea what where the school's going to need us, were they going to want us. And so we began this year to, this fall, like late summer, early fall, we began to call our schools and say, how can we serve you this year? What can we do for you? What do you need from us? I mean, we weren't calling and saying, hey, what week can we come in or anything like that. It was, we want to offer you whatever you need from us, please tell us. And I thought the most telling thing that we learned is they told us that we were the first outside organization, actually the only outside organization that had reached out to them. No one else, none of the other community providers had even called. And they're like, we can't believe you're calling us. Like, thank you very much for calling us. And I thought in my mind, when that started to happen, I thought, yeah, it's the relationship. They're our friends. Of course we want to help them. And so I just can't say enough about building relationships, building community awareness, so people know who you are, and they know that you're true blue. And beyond all that, you better have a good program to back that up, because you're building a solid relationship here. So don't go in with some program that's half-baked. Make sure your program is the best there is to offer. So that's what I was thinking, Marianne.
Okay, well, thank you. I think your enthusiasm is palatable.
Oh, good.
I only wish that I had had the foresight to play in between all of you that song about the champions. We are the champions.
Right.
So if there's anybody that's tech savvy that can pull that up, we're going to play that at the end for sure. And anybody, just please put what your best takeaway from what Peggy just shared. And Peggy, tell us how many schools you're actually serving right now. I know you're in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, we're in, currently we're in 130 schools. We've had as many as 175. And one of the reasons there's a reduction is because, unfortunately, a lot of Catholic schools in our vicinity are no longer open. So, and I'll tell you what, we'd take another 100 if we, but we know who we haven't served, and we're always looking to serve them. And actually, it's quite a challenge for us. We were working with a researcher one time, and they said, hey, we want to work with Catholic schools, but they'll never let you do research. Well, don't say that to us, because they wanted 10 Catholic schools. We had them in 2 weeks, schools we had never served. So we liked the challenge of looking and, serving unserved schools. So yeah, 130 now, but we've been up to 175.
Excellent. That's great. All right, we're going to move on, and we're going to hear from Thelma Moten, who pretty much owns Arkansas. And she knows I always say that about her, because she has done tremendous work in that state serving youth. So Thelma, tell us your most successful strategies.
Well, thank you, Marianne, and thanks, Peggy and Cliff, for I'm not sure I have all that enthusiasm, Peggy, but I do have champions, Cliff. I want you to know that. I have champions, and I do. There are 3 other agencies here in the state of Arkansas that I work alongside. So I don't own Arkansas, but I work alongside several others. But when you're talking about what are our most successful strategies for expanding our program here in the state, and we've been promoting character education and risk education and risk avoidance. We've been promoting that throughout the state of Arkansas for about 30 years. And I want to tell you, when you ask me what's the most successful strategy, it differs. It differs from each location, each community, and even sometimes for the local school. And so our strategies is kind of have an ebb and flow. But I want to tell you, the most effective for us has been word of mouth. It literally has been word of mouth. When we started years ago, other teachers would call up other teachers in other districts and say, you need to hear what these people are teaching our kids. I've not seen the response from my kids as I've seen from this program. So word of mouth has been our biggest champion. And it's been from teachers talking to their peers. One of the other effective strategies is having a strong, and I know Peggy, you have one, is having a very strong youth peer panel that really sets the tone. They really set the tone for us. So word of mouth from our teachers, from our students has been incredible. And we're not by invitation only. In the beginning, we were by invitation only. But as we started to expand, there were people who would come in and through our program, and we are located, our home base is located in Conway, Arkansas, where we're called the City of Colleges. And so there are a lot of students that come into our particular county, and we recruit from the local colleges for interns and for volunteers to be a portion of our program. Well, these students would go back to their communities and they would talk about what they were involved in. And so they would want to get the program into their schools. And sometimes there's a pushback from administrations. And so the things that we've been able to offer that has just been a foot in the door is to say, you know what, we want to come in and we want to provide for you an opportunity to hear some powerful, somewhat like what Peggy just said, some powerful speakers. But what we want to do for you at no cost is we want to bring in a high-powered motivational speaker, and we would like to do an assembly. And once we bring that speaker in, and sometimes that speaker is introduced by our peer presenters, I want to tell you, before you can get finished, you've got a principal coming and saying, we want you here. And for an example, I want to tell you, we're in some of the highest risk schools in the area in Arkansas. And we just opened up in the Delta, in probably the most impoverished area in our state. And we had one principal who was really reluctant for whatever reason, and I know the reasons, but not necessary for details. But one of the teachers wanted us to come through the 9th grade health class, and the principal was reluctant. We started presenting our curricula, and I want to talk to you about the importance of having a great curricula. And then we brought in this high-powered NFL New York Giants speaker who we bring him in all the time. It is incredible. Before the speaker could finish, the principal was standing at the door, and he blocked the door and said to me, I want you here, and I want you in more than just the 9th grade classes. And so the strategy, one of those strategies is to make sure you offer something. And when you offer something, you better make it good and make it powerful. So that's one of the strategies, peer presentations, assemblies. And the other thing is visiting with your gatekeeper in the various locations. Rather than just going in talking about this most powerful curriculum that we have that fits within the state standards, can you tell us how else we can meet some of your needs? And so we find out from some of the gatekeepers, which would be counselors and some of our teachers, what are some of the biggest needs? And some of those needs is we need someone to work with our alternative kids. We need someone to, can you recruit some, you guys might call them mentors, but we call them encouragers. And so we meet the immediate need. We want to make sure you understand that we want to meet not just bring in the curricula, but we want to be able to meet your needs as well. And so it's important to do that. And then when we are going into those uncharted territories, into those schools that don't have any real history with us, it is important for me, I have put together a school packet, and that school packet proceeds and it goes out And in that packet, we have gone and we have captured the Department of Education standards of health and wellness standards. And so we've gone through the health and wellness standards, and we've looked at every strand and how the 3 curriculums that we use, how they match those strands. And so we put that in that packet so that those principals or those superintendents can feel comfortable with, wow, this curriculum meets our frameworks. And we're also able to tie that to a theory, that our curriculum fits well within these various theories. Or if we're trying to get through career orientation or getting through a particular class, we're able to point specifically that this curriculum addresses healthy relationships. It addresses specifically the social development theory. And so we're able to show how our curriculum is aligned not only with your Department of Education frameworks and strands, but also we tie that to some theories and help them to understand that we're able to meet their requirements. One of the other things that's important for us is for our, when we engage ourselves, we're covering now like 12 counties in the state. It's important for our teachers to understand that we are well-trained and well certified, and that our curriculum is moving, it's mobile, and it will meet the various strands within their particular class. For instance, when we were invited to go through a communications class. And you thought, well, how do you do that? Well, what we did was we put together a debate team and they were able to do their research on contraception versus sexual delay and abstinence education. And they were able to debate the benefits of that. And then they were to write a particular, to write an essay on that, and they were graded on that. And we were able to talk about the benefits. We were able to give them their resources so they could do their research. So there's so many ways, so many strategies other than just going through the typical front door or back door, because I go through any door we can find. And sometimes when the doors are closed, I want you to know that I will go through a window. And sometimes we have been in some of our schools for 5 to 6 years before a superintendent ever know that we were there. How do you do that? You invite yourself in, and I think I heard Cliff or Peggy talk about, we provide ourselves as guest speakers. You know, we're coming in and we can become a guest speaker, and teachers will say, well, can you speak on this subject? And before you know it, I say, you know what, why don't we do this? I have a curriculum that will address every single area of concern that you have. And so let's look at how we fit within the semester for you. And so we make ourselves accessible. We open ourselves up to our stakeholders' ideas. We let them speak into the implementation, and we craft it to meet their requirements. For instance, in some of our schools, they want us in and they want us out. They want us to come in, do our pre-post, do the curriculum, make sure we're able to do the follow-up, and then they want to move us. And so we accommodate. For others, they allow us to come in throughout the year, and it's called the Excel Day. Students are looking forward for the Excel Day. And so we try to fit their needs or their desires without pressing the way we want it to be. One of the other things that has worked really well for us when we talk about the strategies that move us is that we try to develop those champion, I'm going to use your word, okay, but those champion relationships. When we're going into the uncharted territories, it is important for me, I will say to every school, I will come, I will implement, but the goal is to raise up a youth serving organization or a group of people in your community that's invested in your community, and allow them to come in while we're there, and we will train them and we will certify them and we will walk alongside them, because the goal is in our city, in our state, we might have to drive 3 to 4 hours to get to a location. So it's very important that when we come and we will move students, you have to show evidence of effectiveness. So we have several ways of showing that, and we will be effective. Kids will be influenced. Kids will make a change in behavior, but we need to have community people invested in that community, where those kids, when they're out at Walmart or where they're out and around in their communities, they have a reminder. They have someone that they know that's invested in their lives, invested in their communities. So our goal is, when we go into communities where maybe we have not been invited, when we do get inside those doors, we're asking for referrals. We're looking through faith-based organizations or even churches to say, who do you have that we can train, and then we can contract with even, so that you can make a difference in your community. The other for us is having a really good, diverse team, that you are reflecting the demographics that you serve. That's not always possible, but when you can, you want to be able to reflect the faces that you are standing before, and you want to understand those dynamics. And so those are some of the strategies. I tried to not repeat some of the things that Peggy and Cliff have mentioned, but having that strong peer presence, that has been key for us. We wanted to open ourselves up to the legislative body here in the state. And so a year and a half ago, we had our First Lady, Susan Hutchinson, to host for us through the Arkansas Education Television Network, to host a forum called Our Youth Voices. And our youth put together the most powerful presentation, and the First Lady invited the commissioner for the Department of Education, some of our representatives, the guy who runs the Arkansas Department of Health. All of those influential people were invited, and our young people were able to stand before them and talk about the impact of having a program, an organization that gave them the sense that they matter, and opened up the door for them to see opportunities, and to allow them to go to DC and stand before their representatives. And when we finished that particular forum and the First Lady gave her endorsement, the doors just opened across the state for us as a result. I think it's so important that we make sure that our youth voices have a place, that we engage our youth as much as possible. So one of our successful strategies is making sure that we make place and space for our young people's voices to be heard. So those are some of the strategies that we have used, making sure that you have a buy-in, that your team is, they have bought into it. They believe this message is true, and that they're trained and they're certified, and they understand the underpinnings of decision making. And one of the other sessions that I just listened to talked about unintended consequences. It's so important that you get with your gatekeeper, so that no matter how dynamic your curriculum is, you want to be sure that you understand the demographics that you're standing before. And so my team always go in, meet with those gatekeepers, and ask key questions, so we know as much as possible what to avoid and what to get around. So the other thing, I think I mentioned it, but the ability to build a very strong collaboration and coordinated events in those communities. So those are some of the successful strategies over the 30 years. We also try to be sure that we have those follow-up components, because it's not enough just to give information. And you'll hear me say this wherever you've heard me speak. I say it everywhere. Information void of relationships will do very little for behavioral change. So while we have the classroom setting, I call that an information dump. And you can develop relationships in those quick moments. But it's so important, if the space allows, for you to allow young people to voluntarily enroll in some follow-up components, where you meet with these students on a weekly basis, either after school or during their lunch periods, making sure, if possible, if you can have that ability and space provided. It's so important to have those components. Also, to have a summer program. Most vulnerable time of the year is when these kids are left home alone or being taken care of by older siblings or whatever. It's so important to be able to follow up. So I probably have gone over my time, but I want to tell you, one of the best and most effective strategies is food. And so for professional development or parent nights, we go in and we provide a great chicken spaghetti dinner and salad. And we bring our peer presenters or do a PowerPoint presentation. If we're wanting to move grade level, and I think it's so important, if you could get a curriculum, and there are some out there that we utilize, I can point to one here, that we utilize that go grade level. It's so important, if you want to do that, is to bring teachers in during the professional development luncheon and talk about the importance and how they wish that the students had gotten a foundation. And then I'm able to step in to say, we have a curriculum that moves with your students. And love to present to school districts to say, let us start with your 6th and 7th graders and move with your students grade-wise. You can make a much greater impact and influence by the time kids are getting to that place where we're talking about that success sequence, and when they're at the gate of the real world, how that success sequence now can make real sense. So that's what I have, Marianne.
Wow. Excellent, excellent information. And if you can all just utilize the chat, I know there was a lot of information shared there, but think about one of the takeaways that you're going to leave this conference with and say, you know what, I think I can do this in my program and it'll help me to be more successful. So start typing, and we're going to move on to the next slide, Julie, and we're going to have another question. And in the interest of time, if you could each maybe spend about 3 to 4 minutes answering what are the biggest challenges you have encountered in expanding SRAE in your community or state. So let's see. I think we'll start again with Cliff because he started us off before. So go ahead, Cliff. Your biggest challenge.
I want to go third. I want to go third because when you go third, but as everybody can see, everybody on the panel is extremely passionate and enthusiastic about everything that we're doing. And I think as we talk about the strategies, and I'll get to this answer real fast, I think it takes work. And in order to mitigate that work, it takes the passion so that way we can be creative, right? And we can form those relationships and be a resource, not a vendor, but a resource to come alongside and a partner with the communities that you work with. So again, take everything that all three of them have said. They work. We've been using them all over the place. The Queen of Arkansas, Ohio, and we've worked with people all over the country, about 4 million teens. So absolutely, it's great, great information. So the question here says, what are the biggest challenges that we've encountered? Our biggest challenge that we've encountered, and this is not just us as an organization, but throughout our partners and those that utilize our program, is actually inaccurate information. Okay, that to us is something that is has become a challenge. More so now with social media, technology, people having the ability to get to take a picture of something or something that was said and send it off to the masses. That becomes problematic, but for us it's been good because we've been able to uncover things that have been being said that need not to be, right? So we've been able to help there, but inaccurate information for us, whether it's from the media, whether it's from the community, whether it's from teachers and educators or students, those have been pretty much our biggest challenges. Now, this could be intentional or unintentional. And again, Thelma just talked about the session with unintended consequences, but it could come from people that just are opposed to the SRAE message itself, right? Whether they're doing it purposefully or not, they're sometimes spilling, again, inaccurate information to the decision makers, to parents, to students, to those that, again, that can make it real difficult. Well-intended individuals that do not understand how to present the message, right? That's another group that gives out inaccurate information sometimes, which is, again, why we do trainings and why we have these trainings and the SIN trainings and all the different things that we do to try to correct that. Teachers that misspeak or speak from opinion, religion, or moral conviction. that has become challenging because, again, the more this happens, the more that it makes it problematic, not just for us, but actually for everybody on this call, because we're all grouped into one entity. And if they said it, then you must be saying the same thing too. Your program is SRAE, and this is what they do. Okay, well, then all of you guys do that. And again, that becomes challenging. And then sometimes they're utilizing material that is just medically inaccurate. Now, again, that's a big challenge too. We're giving out information that we had information that was there 5, 6, 7 years ago. Whoever the organization was or programs have not updated their information at all. And now we're saying things from 2001 that have no place in 2020. So again, that is something that's important. Now, the resulting problems from this is, again, some people are being removed from class. And again, when we're talking about this, we're saying it because it's just so important. Because some programs have been removed from classes in schools, and community groups have been kicked out of schools because they've given poor information. You heard Peggy and Thelma say that whatever program that you use, it has to be good. It has to be powerful, has to be engaging and fun. When you do that, those relationships that you form will stay with you and become your advocates. And again, advocates is a wonderful thing to have. But board meetings and town hall meetings are happening because of unintended consequences, and no one wants to be part of that. We've been in part of several of them, again, defending people all across the country that have said something inaccurately, and we will always try to defend within reason. If it's something that's said that just is indefensible, we're not going to defend you, right? But if something is said that's close, we'll defend and we'll do everything we can. So we've seen these board meetings and town hall meetings up close and personal, and they're not always that fun, okay? Media involvement to alert the public on the misinformation. We've seen teachers that have been on news broadcasts and news shows, and they've been written up on, and investigative journalists have done things about them because they misspoke or said something incorrectly. We want you to stay out of the news if you can, okay? Unless it's something good, then of course you can be in it. And then again, one of the problems is that students, at the end of the day, we're trying to help students. And you guys love students so much that you want them to fulfill their dreams, their purpose, their goals. That's the only reason we're here. None of us, I think, in this call are doing this because we're going to become a millionaire. Unless you are, okay? But none of us are really trying. That's not why we're here. We're here because the students, and we have a heart that we want to make sure that they can fulfill every purpose that they can have, right? So we want to make sure that the students get accurate information, because this accurate information that the students have can be life-changing if they're not questioning the information, or if all of a sudden your fidelity has been questioned or your credibility has been questioned, and now they can't believe you or they can't work with you, or there's a question. No. For us to impact these students, they have to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're giving accurate information. And yeah, everything that you feel that's life-changing on the inside, that's real. And you can't do permanent things with temporary people, right? And you can't, there's so many things that we want them to get that is really, really good if we're accurate. And lastly, obviously, we don't want to upset parents, okay? When you're given medically inaccurate information or just inaccurate information, period, now you have the parents to deal with. So again, when parents and students can be our biggest advocates, when they're not happy, they can really be detrimental to your program too. So again, for us, the biggest challenge that we've come across throughout the country that we see is inaccurate information. And that's pretty much the things there. And again, I will yield my time so Peggy and Thelma can go ahead and get and do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, Thelma?
I know we don't have a lot of time, but may I just go back? You know, I talked about having a school packet, and I wanted to just make sure that I share what's in that school packet. And I don't know if I did that or not, but I will be able to send that, Marianne, on to you guys so you can get that information out, that school packet, what it encompasses.
Okay, and in addition to that, there's been a question about the curriculum you use, and we're going to direct people to the final slide that has your contact information, and you can share that also. So Peggy, why don't you take us, how about 2 more minutes for you and 2 more minutes for Thelma about your biggest challenge? Because they will cut us off at the knees here.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to follow up a little bit on a couple of things that Cliff was talking about. You know, really, I think one of the things, once we have our invitation, once we're in the school, we really do have to make sure we're giving our best. And that, how do you do that though? How do you make sure that you're giving your best? And I think some of the things that Cliff was saying are so vital. We have to have fidelity to our program. You can't have one instructor say one thing, and then the next time you're in that school, you have a different instructor saying something else. It really should be every time you're in that school, they're seeing the same thing, that you're medically accurate, that you're innovative in the way that you're presenting the programming, and that your instructors are extremely well trained. And this goes back again to something else Cliff was saying. You have to train your instructors. You have to work with them. You have to give them the skills they need in order to be effective in the classroom. So of course, you know, having a certification is a perfect way to start that, because they get a foundation of what the SRA movement is all about. And then just to say one thing about, to add on to what Thelma was saying, we do need to give youth a voice. We need to hear what they have to say, because youth are the people that will teach us how they want to learn and what they need to learn. So I find that really fascinating. So we have peer leadership groups. They help us develop our magazine, and they are instrumental in developing short films that we have on YouTube. They come up with the topics, they help write the scripts, they act in them, and these short films are being seen all over the world. So they're not only making a community impact, they're making an impact in the, you know, all across the country and worldwide. So by giving youth a voice, by listening to what they have to say, we're learning how to serve them better. And I noticed that someone had put up there as far as, you know, what's your, you know, wait list. I have to be perfectly honest. Insufficient funding in this field is a huge detriment to what we're trying to do. Oftentimes when we're scheduling, my scheduling coordinator will say, well, we don't have anyone to send. I'm like, okay, schedule them and we will get there. We will handle this. It's the, you know, to turn away a school is heartbreaking, or to say we can't come in until next year, it's heartbreaking. Insufficient funding is really a huge detriment to the type of work we're doing. Insufficient funding, hands down. So thank you.
We're going to have Thelma bring us home here as we close out.
Peggy, that's it. It's funding, and if the funding streams could go longer than a 3-year period of funding, so you can get your footing before you're having to try to figure out something. So the limitation for us is funding and having sufficient space for follow-up opportunities. And so, you know, one of those barriers is the kids want those follow-up components, and so some schools don't have that ability to have that. And so we've been trying to work with various teachers and encouraging them to become club representatives and allowing us to use their classrooms during the lunch periods in order to have that space available. But hands down, it's funding and funding restrictions. Honestly, there's some restrictions there that's put upon you that if we could loosen some of those, that would be helpful. But a 2 to 3 year funding in an impoverished area where you're trying to develop coalitions and trying to train up people is not sufficient time to build. And there, honestly, beyond grant funding, and you don't have a large number of foundations that are willing to pour into what we are doing. And so if the grant sources could understand the necessities to expand the length of year, from 2 to 3 to even a 5-year funding. It gives you an opportunity to develop some sort of sustainability.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to tell you that I've been doing this for a lot of years too, and I have been truly inspired by all of you. Once again, you're never too old to be inspired. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank everyone who joined us. I want you to now just go in the chat and tell us what you thought about this great panel, and we will close this session right on time with this. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This will conclude today's session. We'll all see you in the closing remarks in a few short minutes. Thank you.